Hey folks, Stu Smith here going live. Hope you are well this Tuesday morning. Today we are going to discuss a few things about getting your mind right, as well as taking a few questions and showing some combat swimmer stroke critiques as well. So I got some on the hopper ready to go. As soon as these questions come in, we'll start answering those. But until then, I saw a question that popped up from yesterday's um, live Q&A session that we did, and this is from Vet, who said, "How did the tests work? Where instructors would add surprise additional requirements just as you were finishing to challenge your mental fortitude." Um, okay, I think understand what you're asking. Yeah, I have seen it over the years where people actually would get up and quit in the middle of a push up test. So, right after the swim, they would get up and leave right after the middle of the push ups because the instructor said you needed to do push ups a certain way. Um, Maybe it was different than the way they practice. Over the years, things have evolved multiple times. Like, it is hard to keep up with all the changes that occur in a PST. For instance, it's gone from doing push-ups on a fist to flat to looking at 90-degree angles of the elbow to on the ground. Um, Multiple changes. So you just make one little tweak on that, and sometimes it sends people out of the room. They're done. And it's amazing to see that. I've seen it with the swim too. For instance, recently, one of my guys was taking a test for the SOAS PST, which is the same as the BUDS PST, but it's just for officers, SEAL officer assessment and selection. So he went to take a PST because he's trying to go OCS and then go to BUDS. And the guy actually told him, you can't do breaststroke kick with the CSS. Never heard that before, ever. Um, Now, probably, and this guy is not a SEAL, he's just a regular recruiter. Probably what he had heard over the years is maybe someone like me saying, you can't swim the CSS with fins using a breaststroke kick because it's impossible, right? But sometimes those instructions get confused by people who may not be in the community. Um, Sorry, my camera wiggled there a little bit. So it's two things. Sometimes it is a game that instructors will play just to see um, how you handle change, different orders. So, for instance, I've seen you can't do the swim with goggles. You can do it with goggles. You can't do a breaststroke pullout. You can't do a breaststroke kick. Um, this is a hard one. I've seen this one as well. As you have to be facing the instructor the entire time while he's on the side of the pool. So that means you have to change strong, weak side every length. So you're constantly facing the instructor on the side of the pool. Um, so there's multiple ways that this happens. I've seen it with pull-ups. You got to touch your chest to the bar versus just getting your chin over the bar. I've seen some where you got to touch your neck, which is, you touch your windpipe first. That's just stupid. A lot of these come in. I don't know where they come from. Sometimes I think it's just lack of experience from the instructor who is giving the PST. Unfortunately, nowadays there's no SEAL mentor program where active duty or former SEALs are contracted to give PSTs. Now it's regular Navy guys who are trained to give the PST, and over the time they may hear new ways to do it and make changes on that. So Justin asks, are you saying the test got harder? No, the test is the same. It's just sometimes there are arbitrary rules thrown into the test to just see how you handle it. Once again, I kind of named this show Get Your Mind Right. And that's one of the ways you got to get your mind right, right? Because you need to be able to handle any change or curveball that is thrown at you for any test. If you're going to run on a track, great. 6 laps is a mile and a half. However, there's some places where you take a test and there's no track. So you got to run on a trail, or you may have to run on, road down and back, it's 0.75 one way, 0.75 back. Multiple different venues to take these tests. And you need to be flexible enough in your ability to perform and not let these changes affect your performance or affect your attitude. Like I said, I've seen people just get up and leave the PST and they were done. I quit. Right. So I think sometimes when you instructors hear that, they want to make it happen as well. So they may throw a curveball into the PST just to see if they can get a quitter. I know it's kind of sadistic, but that is the way it works. If you can play a mind game and get somebody to quit, that shows a lot about that person, right? Like previous article I wrote about don't let them get in your head. Um, it's up on Stu Smith Fitness. In fact, if you guys haven't seen that one, it's probably one of my best. I have to say, because it's so true, so true. I mean, unfortunately, there's there's two things that you can do when you get forced with negative feedback and a head game that is directed in your way, and that's either fix whatever is wrong, comply with the process, or fall apart and quit. So think of it that way. It's a test, and it's more than just push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, a run, and a swim. Right? It's a test on how bad you really want to do this, and will a curveball upset you? Because here's the deal: no plan goes perfectly. Right? No mission planning. When the mission starts, there are always contingencies that you have to look out for. And if you can start training your mind to be flexible for when something goes wrong, you can roll with the flow, come up with a better answer, or even better, already have a secondary option ready to go, right? And just flow with your contingencies. Like in every mission, there's basically 5 phases of a mission. There's an insertion, there's an infiltration, there's actions on the objective, there's an exfiltration, and there's an extract. Each one of those phases of a mission will have contingencies. You know, are you able to leave the boat? Or what's wrong if you run out of gas, or if you have high seas, or you land in the wrong drop zone? What happens when no one's at the target, or too many people are at the target than previously thought? What are the contingencies for those kinds of changes that occur? And the final grand finale contingency is what they call an E&E plan, which is basically a escape and evasion plan, emergency escape plan. Um, and that's one of those things where you're just trying to exfil as quickly as possible, ditch everything. You got an E&E kit that's just enough for survival, and you're getting out of that situation as quickly as possible. And there's a plan for that type of scenario that occurs in mission planning. And sometimes your training mission, your instructors will say, all right, you guys are on E&E, go. And you have to now get everybody together and say, "Hey, remember that E&E plan we had? Well, we're on it, so let's go do it." Um, so be able to roll with the flow. Have some contingencies. Don't let things get in your head, and be in the right mindset so that just flows. So that was a good question. I think it applies to not only as you're an operator, but it also applies to getting to and through the process of becoming an operator. So once again, 3 phases of tactical fitness. You got to get to the training by crushing a PST. You got to get through the training by crushing a selection. And then you got to become an operator and maintain all those elements of fitness that you need, but also have the right mindset so you can handle those kinds of contingencies and be able to think through them. So there you go. That's my intro. Now we'll take some questions and we'll show some CSS. How would you program your underwater swimming into regular programming? Let's say fall winter cycle. Would I just add it after the swim? It's up to you. I mean, you can, a lot of these sets are doable sets, and throw an underwater in for 25 meters, or throw underwater in for a little more, 25 and a kickoff. Um, I don't personally like to do underwaters in a workout. I have in the past, and I think, for the most part, if you're going to practice underwater swimming, mainly practice the technique of underwater swimming and don't push yourself to a point of where you black out and die. Unfortunately, there are many people every year who die underwater because they're doing breath hold practice, or they're trying to swim for as long as they can underwater, and they have shallow water blackout and die. And you can Google it and put Spec Ops candidate in there, and you'll find several. And so yes, it is important to practice the technique of it, but don't practice an extreme amount of time or distance underwater, because eventually, if you have your technique properly honed in, and let's say you can do 25 meters with a kickoff and 4 strokes to get across the pool, that's really efficient. And let me tell you, it's not much harder than holding your breath and walking. Where people screw up is they don't have any technique underwater, and they're just constantly doing this and wonder why they're tired after 15 meters. So focus on efficiency, focus on gliding, focusing on not being tired after 25 yards. And I promise you, if you can do a 25 yard and not even be winded, you can do a 50 meters real easy without even practicing. And then eventually, once you're in the military and they have people on station watching you, and they have medics on the um, pool deck, you can do that in a little safer environment. But never do that on your own. Even with some of the lifeguards these days, you got to watch out because they're not paying attention. They look like they are, but they're not paying attention. Um, so yeah, don't push yourself underwater. Focus on technique, not maximum effort underwater. How much running per week should someone run in preparation for FLETC? Um, Good question. Um, you still have a mile and a half to do for that physical exam battery, the PEEB. You also have some agility stuff in there, so I would mix it up where you're getting some sprint days, some speed and agility days, and some goal pace running days, so you can keep up with that mile and a half pace, and maybe do a slower paced run at 4 or 5 miles just to work on some, getting used to running and some aerobic base. Or if that's too much running for you, you can replace the longer runs with more biking. So it kind of depends. The heavier guys probably don't need to do a whole lot of extra running, um, just because they're probably going to be susceptible to knees and shins and things like that, especially if you're a new runner. However, eventually you got to build yourself up, and those non impact cardio days need to turn into running days progressively. And yeah, I think it's safe to run anywhere between 15 and 20 miles a week for just about any level of runner, but you still have to build up to it. If you're at 0 miles a week, you don't want to jump into 20 miles a week, right? Maybe start off at 4 or 5 miles a week and progress 15% each week until you get up to 15 to 20 miles a week. So that's how I would do it. And I think that would be perfect. Let's see here. Joe has some questions. Thank you, Joe. On the subject of mental toughness, how much of it do you think is trained versus innate? You know what? I answered that question on an article. In fact, I have this great article page, and it is called Mental Toughness, the one stop landing page for answers. And the very first question is, are you born with it or can it be developed? And I answer that question as best I can in this article. And there's some podcasts in there on the topic as well. This is a really good page for mental toughness. I put this together not really understanding how many times I wrote about mental toughness, but there are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably a dozen articles, as well as probably a 10 podcasts on some version of mental toughness, whether it's talking about quitting, um, talking about not quitting. There's a big variety in there. So check out that article. It's a really good one. Um, but personally, I think it can be both. I think many people are born with a certain level of it, and it can definitely be um, trained as well. So life has a way of making you mentally tough if you have very bad circumstances growing up, and also you can simulate harsh circumstances by putting yourself in very challenging positions, whether it's through high standards of academics or high standards of athletics and performance. There's always something that has to you have to push yourself, and eventually it has nothing to do with your god-given talents. It's you pushing yourself to make another move upward of mental toughness. A great example would be like this morning. I did not feel like running, did not feel like going to work out. I was very comfortable at 5:15 in the morning in my bed. My dog's right next to me, keeping me warm. It's a good time. However, I got up anyway and I went and ran and swam and did some legs. Um, so I would put that as, I wasn't motivated to go do it, but I was disciplined to go do it. And I think every time you work out, even though you don't feel like it, you just added another scoop of mental toughness, right? And you just established a habit that is not being broken. So that's where it all ties in to motivation, discipline, habits. Mental toughness is all a part of that journey. All right. So tied to the above, did you know any candidates or SF operators who consulted with sports therapists just to get their mind right for a selection? Is it a waste or useful? Um, I did not. However, I have learned a little bit about sports psychology, and there's some very useful things in there that I didn't realize I did that I learned through a sports psychologist. So if you read that latest article I wrote about bring in your A game, there's something in there called performance cues. And a performance cue is used in sports psychology. In sports, can be used for anything really, to get you into a certain state of mind and body that allows you to perform at an acceptable performance rate, if that makes any sense. So, for instance, remember that feeling of like you hit a walk off home run, right? It's a game winner. Everybody's cheering. Everybody's jumping on you. Everybody's happy. You're ecstatic. You're it's almost surreal. Give that moment a name, right? And let's call it something like bring it, right? Just give it a weird name. So now you use that phrase, bring it, the next time you're up at bat, right? And it gets you in that state of, all right, the swing is mentally the same. You've envisioned all this stuff. So there's some useful tools in there that I didn't know that I was using until I learned a little bit about sports psychology. Like I always had these little phrases like, come on, let's go. Let's do this. And then I created that one that was like train to compete, not just survive, because I saw so many people whose goal was to just pass and just hit that minimum standard every day. And they were just borderline failure all the time. They have a bad day, they failed, right? And they were gone because they couldn't meet the standard. So I was like, man, I need to think about winning, right? And because that puts me in a different mindset altogether. And I may not win, but I'm going to be in the top 10%, maybe top 20% of a class, which has a 75, 80% attrition rate. That's where you want to be. And that's where I came up with you never think about quitting when you think about winning, because I am competing. It's a completely different mindset. So that's where you need to be mentally. And that's kind of how you get your mind right, thinking that way. Good questions. For future buds candidates, is there a line to cross where you prepare for certain evolutions? Do you go partially blind or try to train for as much as possible? I have no idea what you're asking. Partially blind. Well, here's the deal. Not sure what that question means, but there's a fine line between mental toughness and stupidity, right? Any program that you do and any changes that you make to it to make it harder, nothing wrong with that. However, if it breaks you because it is beyond your abilities and you pushed beyond your abilities so far that now you can't run for 2 months because you have stress fractures and shin splints and whatever tendonitis, um, that's not good. You know, not being able to do something for 2 months just sets you back. You might as well start over as a beginner 2 months from now. That's a loss of a lot of progress. So you want to find that line and not step over it and get into stupidville, right? And it's hard. It's hard when you're preparing for spec ops to find where that line is. You have to listen to your body. You have to obviously understand a progression. Like you don't want to start your first run that you've ever done um, in the last, say, year on a 5 mile or 10 mile run out of nowhere. That's just asking for pain and injury. Same with lifting. You used to be able to bench press 300 pounds a year ago and haven't touched a weight since. You don't jump right under 300 pounds and start trying it, right? Build back up. It's a progression. So you just have to be logical. It's fun to push yourself. I've done plenty stupid workouts to where they were borderline on that, and I stepped over it a couple times. That's why I'm speaking from you to you from experience. There weren't great programs out there when I was doing this. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't too much information. In fact, there was little information. I don't know which is better. It's almost like there's a bell curve, right? Too much information is not very helpful. Too little information is not very helpful. And there's somewhere in the middle, which is part journey for you to sift through a lot of information and find what works best for you, because it's not going to be same for everybody. No diet is the same that works for everybody. No workout is going to be identical that works for everybody. There has to be some tweaks that you may have to put on it because of your athletic history, because of your current abilities. And you may have to either make it harder or make it easier, depending on that. So, not quite sure what that question was going to, but I was able to come up with something. Um, a mental toughness. There are studies that show wrestlers, boxers, and even those who come from rough backgrounds tend to do better. Why do you think that is? Yeah, it's true. Because those guys are tough. That's why. And they're used to, it's one-on-one battle. A lot of times if you've had a rough background, you don't have a big support network, right? Wrestlers and boxers, you're the only one out there. Unless you're doing WWE and you got a tag team partner. Just joking. But it's just you one on one battling your own inner demons, with another guy. That makes you tough. And that's really what it's all about. Life, like I said, life can make you tougher. Sports can also help with that. More practical of how many hours do you separate your lift sessions from your long runs with your guys, or does it not matter when it comes to separating the two? Well, when we're really trying to lift and get strong, it's a lift workout. Very little cardio in there at all. In fact, if there is, it's basically like a rest session. Instead of sitting around like power lifters and just shooting the breeze for 5 minutes in between sets, I don't like wasting time, especially for a spec ops guy candidate. I like putting them on the cardio machine and letting them just kind of actively recover, right? And so, yeah, it may interfere with your lifts a little bit, but at the same time, we're not trying to set world class powerlifting records when we're lifting. We're trying to get a little bit more strong, a little bit more durable, but also maintaining a level of muscle stamina and endurance. So it's up to you. It's really kind of up to your schedule purposes. Sometimes when we, like the last 2 years, when we were working outdoors all winter because COVID wouldn't let us indoors with our large group of in the gym. So we just stayed outdoors. And be honest with you, it was a lot of fun. We didn't have to worry about COVID regulations. We just worked out. It was fun. Um, but just to stay warm in 28-degree weather, we had to run to stay warm. And I brought little portable heaters and took the sting off your hands a little bit. But for the most part, we were running a little bit to stay warm. So, for instance, let's say we would do a set of bench press and heavy dumbbell rows, right? Well, before we went to our next bench press, we would just run a quarter mile. So take 2 to 3 minutes, run a quarter mile, nothing fast, just enough to keep the body pumping, keep it warm so you're not resting and getting too cold. So, hope that answers your questions. Yeah, sometimes we do separate workouts altogether. Like for instance, our pool availability is a little bit different depending on the season, depending on swim teams and masters course and all that stuff. So we will sometimes swim right after the workout, or we will go and swim at lunch or maybe 1 p.m. depending on any work hours. A lot of us have busy times in between workouts. So we just take a lunch break and get a 30-45 minute swim in. In fact, the other day I did a 30-minute swim. I got an 1850, 1850 yards in 30 minutes. So I was pretty happy with that one. So, oh, let's see. The grinder workout you created. Will you recreate phase 2 and phase 3 at Buds? Um, it doesn't really change that much. PT's PT at Buds. There's yeah, you're basically you have no equipment, pull-up bar, dip bars, and a ground. So there's not a lot of um, it's just calisthenics, and they're not that hard. Not many people get kicked out because they fail to do calisthenics up to par. Most people get kicked out for running, rucking, swimming, being under logs and boats, failing obstacle courses, or just being cold and quitting. Any recent successes of Heroes of Tomorrow? Yes, several actually. Um, got several moving well in the pipeline of Army SF. We've got another guy about to do HRT in the FBI. Some SOAS successes, definitely dozens between the Academy guys and the local ROTC guys and a couple OCS guys. Did really well at our SOAS this summer. And then we got a whole bunch in first phase right now. So we'll see how they do. And we got some in the SQT as well. So currently just focusing on calisthenics and running. Is it necessary to put in weightlifting? Depends. I answer this question all the time. I mean, that's pretty much what seasonal tactical fitness periodization is all about. Do you need to lift weights? It depends. Are you coming from a power background? Are you strong already? In fact, there's an assessment tool I use to help you determine if you are strong already. They're not, like I said, these aren't world class lifts. If you come from any powerlifting background, even a football team, you've probably doubled some of these lifts. Um, for instance, body weight bench press, not asking you to do more than body weight. I mean, if you can do body weight and a half, that's great. But if you can do body weight for 15 reps, that's really good. 20-pound pull-ups, if you can do that for double digit reps, 15 reps or more, really good. Um, Body weight and a half to 2 times your body weight deadlift, that's really good. Up to 5 reps, even better. Then there's some jumps, some sprints, some shuttle runs. Those are all really kind of power oriented events. So it depends. Do you need strength and power added to your training? If you do, you may want to do a strength and power cycle while you maintain all these calisthenics and cardio activities. So you can still work them all together. However, just understand if you're really focused on strength and power, that's what you want to improve in, right? You just want to try to maintain some cardio and calisthenics. You're not trying to improve in calisthenics and cardio because improving in both is nearly impossible. It's the elements of fitness just don't work well together. That's why you see like a football player will do strength, power, speed, agility, before the football season. A runner will do muscle stamina and endurance prior to building aerobic activity, aerobic base prior to their activity. They don't need to focus on necessarily a lot of strength, at least not heavy strength. But it really depends. Take a look at that assessment tool. I think I put it in the yeah, I put it in the comment section there. Take a look at that assessment tool and just see. And those standards there are some of mine that I recommend that guys who have gone on and done really well at their selections and become operators, that's what they had before they left. But it's also a study that they did at Buds about Hell Week finishers who obviously did well enough in Hell Week to succeed, what some of those numbers were as well. So once again, my answer to you is it depends. All right. So with that, I got the next question coming up here. But let's do a CSS critique real quick. Let me share my screen. Here we go. You guys can see that. All right, let's see what this guy looks like. Let's always start off with the kickoff. If the kickoff looks streamlined, usually going to turn out pretty good. Oh, nice. Good streamline. Nice little dolphin kick, double arm pull. Yeah, that's nice. Look at him coming up way 10, 12 yards into the swim. The only thing I'm seeing here is, what do you guys see? No glide. Top arm, bottom arm kick. Top arm, bottom arm kick. Hold the glide. Like, you should be able to say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, pull. Like, he's pulling a whole second and a half too soon. And what that does is it just adds a lot of strokes. In fact, let's do this. Let's count as strokes. We can count as double arm pull. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He should already be across the pool by now. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Man, that's exhausting. He didn't even get across the pool. Good Lord. Maybe it has a 50-meter pool or something. That was a lot of strokes to get across the pool. But if you're anywhere in the double digits to get across a 25-yard pool, that's way too much effort. You should be somewhere 5 and 6. And I'm a non-swimming athlete, so I can still do sometimes 4 to 5, depending on how efficient I feel. But usually I hit it between 5 and maybe 6 if I need that extra breath. Sometimes if I'm moving a little quick, I'll shorten a stroke just so I can breathe again a little quicker. So there are strategies to adding a stroke, but you don't want to do it every single time because you're going to make 20 links in a 25-yard pool, right? Every stroke that you add could add 20 total links to your 500-yard swim. So think about that math for a minute. So if I do it at 6, he does it at 12, he's doing, that's a lot of extra strokes compared to me. And how's that going to feel whenever he's doing pull-ups and push-ups and sit-ups? And that's a lot of extra kicks. That's going to affect his run. It's going to affect his sit-ups, a bunch of flutter kicks in there. So yeah, it's all about efficiency in the water. So stay efficient and don't waste a lot of energy in the pool. You can still be very fast and only do it in 5 strokes. The more strokes you do does not make you faster. Stu, do I monitor HRV while you are training, and what's the value of it's worth? Yeah, there's definitely value of monitoring that. I do not. Heart rate variability. You guys Google that if you want to figure out what that is. It is good because it can tell you if you're stressed out or not, overtraining. So it is another assessment tool that you can use to just see if you're burned out or not, if you're recovered well. A lot of those Whoop bands that go there, when they're telling you that you're fully recovered, supposedly can take that into account as well. Not sure how they do it, how the technology is available for them to do that with a watch, but it appears to be close to accurate. Um, Another way of telling if you're overtraining or not is just pure grip. So get you a grip device. I think they're like dynamometers. Um, get you a grip device, and if you feel like your grip is just gone, like you can barely do 25% of your normal pull-ups before you slide off the bar, that means you're overtraining. So for instance, one of our guys went out to SOAS. He completed the week, really challenging week. I think they started off with 75 and finished with 30, for that block, which, it's 1 week and they lost that many people. So, and it's hard to become an officer. There's a lot of work. There's at least 6 months of paperwork and phone interviews and PSTs that you have to do, medical and all that, to even get accepted into SOAS. And yeah, that many people either failed or quit in that week. But he made it, but he got rhabdo. So now he's back training with us, and he's training very gently. And I was noticing, like when he did pull-ups, I think we were all doing like sets of 10 for multiple sets, and he was only doing like two or three. And I said, yeah, that's smart, not doing a lot of reps right now, especially after rhabdo, kind of go easy into it. And he goes, no, it's not that I was trying to do that. I can't hold on to the bar. I've like lost my grip. And that's when I told him, I said, that's one of the easiest ways to find out if you're overtraining or not. Just that simple loss of grip, strength, and ability. So you can do it a couple different ways. If you don't want to buy a dynamometer, which you can go to Amazon and buy one for $15, or you can just go to a pull-up bar and see how long you can hang and just time it. Time it when you're feeling fresh, time it when you think you're burnt out, and see if there's a difference. You'd be surprised that grip um, is a big indicator. So sorry to digress on you there, JR. But yeah, I don't have a HRV indicator or method to um, monitor it, so I don't really monitor it. Do you try and train for as many evolutions as possible, or just get a good base in all categories of fitness and see what happens? I don't understand. I don't understand what that means. Um, but look at it this way. Seasonal tactical fitness. You need to read about seasonal tactical fitness periodization and why it's important, because there's a Venn diagram that is in that article that explains what it is and what you have to train for. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to show it, because when you say all evolutions, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. So, can you guys see this? All right, so probably can't see it well, but I'll read it for you. Yeah, it's hard to get that in there big. But anyway, this Venn diagram here, this is the strength side right here. So you're looking at strength, power, speed, and agility. That kind of helps with durability, your overall durability. This over here is anaerobic, aerobic conditioning, muscle stamina. That helps with work capacity. That's in here. Um, Big part of this is down here where the this bottom part is. This is all about recovery. So this is recovery, nutrition, mobility, flexibility, stress mitigation, physical, mental, emotional. All of that plays a factor in how well you are recovering from the stress that you are putting on your body and mind with either workouts, work, school, etc. This one right here, the stability side, this is just how well you handle the stresses of work and are able to still learn. The thinking part of your brain is still creative enough to work through problems. You can pick up new job skills, tactical skills, your hand eye coordination, your mindset, mentality, all of those things come into play to build what's in the middle, and that is longevity. Or, as you may recall me talking about longevity as the very same thing, it needs all of those things to um, build optimal performance. So, there's an article I wrote called Longevity is the Mastery of Recovery. And then I wrote another one because I was looking at all these things and I'm like, damn, same thing for a young guy trying to be best he can be or she can be. And that's optimal performance. So the mastery of recovery is also, or optimal performance is the mastery of recovery as well as good training. All right. So what's Mike say? This might be a stupid question. I doubt it. But I'm new to swimming and I was wondering how you breathe while swimming with a face mask, goggles, or just regular goggles. Is it the same? No. Well, be honest with you, it's kind of hard to nose breathe with goggles. I tend to be a mouth breather when I swim, just because maybe I'm used to most of my swims being with a mask, so I tend to mouth breathe. However, when I'm on my back doing turtlebacking or something like that, I tend to be a nose breather. Especially with goggles on, I'll just breathe in my nose, because I'm not trying to keep water from going in and out of my nose. It's hard to breathe when you're trying to do that with goggles on. So, yeah, if you're used to being a nose breather while you're running, it can be a shock when you put on a mask and now you're a mouth breather. But you have to get used to. You have to be able to do both. Is my short answer to that. What kind of goggles should you train in? Eventually, if you're trying to go to buds, all of your swims will be done with a mask. Now, there may be um, events. In fact, there are events where you don't wear anything. So, drown proofing, the underwater swim. Um, what else? Not tines with a mask, but drown proofing, underwater swim are done without a mask. But all your swims are going to be done with a mask, and most of them are going to be with fins. So, just get yourself a mask. Um, I personally like the masks made by Decor. You can do Decor masks in Google and see some. You may even see, um, you know, and what you could do is, Google Navy SEALs ocean swimming. Look at the mask that they're wearing, and then go to Decor's website and find the one that looks like that. Usually, it's two pieces of glass and a nose piece um, on there. So, yeah, good questions. When exactly y'all starting your fall winter cycle when it's fall? Um, exactly. Um, Usually that's around November. So I think fall is what? Mid-October. We may do some uh testing events the last 2 weeks of October before we go into the lift because I like to see like where we are on all the muscle stamina and endurance at that point. And then by late October, early November, we're starting to downshift the running and calisthenics to a maintenance level, but we're starting to upswing, nice little curve with the weights and and rucking as well. But that's when we do it. Yeah, tactical fitness reports. Yeah, they're coming out. Just been busy, and I like doing those with Jeff and trying to get our schedules to match has been difficult. He just got married and has been moving around and all that stuff. So we'll get back on it again. I'll have some other guests too. So these are what we have to do in the meantime. On the Stairmaster, doing some non-impact cardio. Just want to say hi. Hey, You know, there's an article I wrote on the Stairmaster workouts too, by the way. Um, I'll put it in here. You guys can check this out. This is a very tough one. It's basically a weight vest workout um, on a stair stepper, or a backpack workout on a stair stepper. Really hard. It is a butt kicker. Let me look for another swim video here and see how this one looks. And we'll show this one. I think this is a pretty good one. So you guys check this out. All right. Let me know you guys can see this. Yeah, you guys can see this. All right, so let's do this. So once again, good streamline position already, kicking off the wall. It's got the biceps on his ears, one hand on top of the other, elbows straight. That's a good streamline position. Remember, when you're trying to swim, you want to look like a torpedo. Kick off the wall. Double arm pull. Pretty good. Look at that. There's a yellow marker coming up a whole body length for his first breath past that. That's really legit. Top arm, bottom arm, kick, hold the glide. Let's count the Mississippis. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, pull. Boom. And how many strokes was that? Maybe 5 or 6? Let's see. We'll see on the way back. We'll count this one, even though I usually just count breaths as a stroke because that's a complete stroke cycle. 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice. 5.5. Oh, yeah, and that was his weak side. Look at that, because he's facing us both times. Let's see what his strong side looks like. So starts off top arm, bottom arm. 1, 2. Yeah, I think this is definitely a stronger side. 3, 4. Good glides. And 5. Yeah, nice. So yeah, his strong side, weak side are very similar. It's hard to tell the difference. Only reason I could tell the difference is like he was facing me both times along the wall. I didn't even recognize it whenever he was doing it. No, that's good. And he's got a good glide. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Pull. Yeah. That's a good glide. See, that's efficiency there. The other guy could be just as efficient if he just held the glide just a little longer. Now, if you notice, if you can't glide like that, it is more a product of your kick that you need to focus on now and make sure that your kick is producing enough power that with a streamlined glide, you can glide for that third Mississippi. I've seen guys, whose kick are really suffering and they only glide for 1 Mississippi, so they feel like they gotta be able to do it. So when that happens, you got to fix your kick. And there's an article I wrote called "Fix Your Kick." Check it out. Fix your kick. If you can't find a glide, this is the reason why. Or it's a really bad streamlined body position, or like your arm recovery's out here versus being in a little tighter. So if your arm recovery's out here like this and you feel like you're pushing water forward, that's just putting on the brakes when you're swimming. All right. Do all special ops pipelines have obstacle course? Do they differ in any way? Yes, they differ. Yes, they have obstacle courses. I think they're just a military necessity. I think the Army SF one's called Nasty Nick. Of course, the Buds obstacle course is legendary. It's all soft sand and pretty darn hard. Marine Corps obstacle course is legit. It's more of a sprint, though. A lot of guys can do that in under a minute. So it's a challenge in that regard. Whereas like Bud's O course, if you're really fast, it might take 6 minutes. I've seen some guys do it in 5 something. So It's a longer obstacle course. Nasty Nick is also a little bit longer as well. Rangers have an obstacle course. I haven't seen pictures of the PJ obstacle course, but I'm almost positive they have one. Just haven't need to look into that. So yeah, obstacle courses are cool. In fact, I always recommend people to do a few obstacle course races just because they're they're fun and they're good practice. If out of all the races that are out there, if you're comparing a triathlon, um, a go ruck, um, a go ruck event, an obstacle course race, an endurance race, or ultra marathon or marathon, I would I would give you a couple of options. I would say number 1, do an obstacle course race. Number 2, especially if you're going army, do a go ruck. Um, um, and number 3, I would say if you're looking for a good variety of cardio because you need to be a cardio machine, 2/3 of your cardio will be non-impact. Triathlon training is a really good option, especially if you're coming from a powerlifting background and you're really big, probably need to lose some mass. I got guys who are 300-pound powerlifters trying to get down to 200. That's a lot of fat and muscle that you got to lose, and you're going to have to literally run your ass off. But instead of being 300-pound runner, you should bike and swim more than you run. So triathlons are great for that. Go rucks are great for just leadership and teamwork building. Obstacle course races are just fun and useful training. It's a lot of kind of think of it as a speed and agility event, and grip. Grip's also tested. Um, and then I would say any useful road race would be a, a half marathon. So 12, 13-mile run is about as um, anything past that. Yeah, they're good gut checks, but they could also break you if you're not used to running more miles than that. The guys you train, what's the average age who's in the Army SF pipeline? Army SF pipeline, they're all post college. I don't think we had anybody that's a teenager doing the Army SF pipeline. They all went to college, came back, uh, trained with me for a year or so. So they're 22, 23 years old going into the pipeline. A lot of them trained with me while they're in college and then graduated college and then joined. Played sports in college. So that's what I'm seeing anyway. Are there teenagers going in the Army SF pipeline? Probably, but I don't see them from my group. For Army SF guys, how are they avoiding detraining or losing strength during basic or OSUT or airborne? Um, Also, what are they making of the SF prep course? They like it, but here's the beauty of Army training compared to Navy. It's night and day. Navy boot camp literally will detrain you. Army, you're at least running, you're rucking, you're doing PTs. It may not be fast, but you're doing it. I was talking to a guy just finished Navy boot camp, and he put together his mileage, and he thinks he ran about 10 miles in 8 weeks of boot camp. So, whereas you're going to do probably that every week at Army boot camp, at least, and ruck. So, at least there's some physical events in the Army, especially Marine Corps. Marine Corps is hardcore boot camp. Um, you're not necessarily going to get out of shape in those training programs compared to like a Navy guy who's trying to go to buds. The prep courses are definitely needed in that case. They're great in the army ones because yeah, they're trying to get you in a little bit better shape. But you can also work out at airborne. You have a little more time at airborne to work out at the end of the day. Um, and then when you get an SF pipeline, you can also add some workouts to what you're doing because a lot of it will be, land navigation training and things like that. So my advice is whatever your weaknesses are, um, make sure you're not neglecting them in those pipelines or basic pipelines. Without putting the FBI guy on the spot, what swimming protocols do you have them doing for HRT selection? I do know they have a huge maritime portion for their selection. Yeah, I mean they do. It's. I'm just having to do the same thing my buds guys are doing. I know a lot of guys that are in that HRT and they're former SEALs, and it's going to look a lot like that. But there's also a lot of load bearing. There's running stairs with all your gear. There's rucking. Um, their selection looks like Hell Week a lot. Um, so I'm just having them do the same thing my SEAL and Air Force PJ guys are doing in the water: drown proofing, swimming, CSS freestyle combos. So if you can work out, if you're trying to go HRT and you're an FBI agent, my suggestion would be get a Navy SEAL workout book and add in some load bearing too. How come certain spec ops pass weights around and retrieve weights at the bottom of the pool while others don't? Yeah, that one simulates picking up a rifle at the bottom of the pool. Um, it's just one test it's, be honest with you, not that hard. Um, I think underwater swimming's harder than running with weights on the bottom or grabbing weights and bringing them up to the surface. It's just a different. Everybody wants to have their own unique thing. I don't think one's particularly harder than the other. You just got to practice it. Well, good morning, Frank. Ooh, I'm already been going at this for an hour. Dang. Let's do a few more. Let's see. After performing top arm, bottom arm right before I'm about to scissor kick, I lose all momentum. How can I fix that? So you're going top arm, bottom arm, kick. Maybe it's the transition. Maybe you're pausing somewhere, or you're taking too long to open your legs, or you're opening your legs too big. Because opening your legs too wide is like swimming with the brakes on. So could be your arm recovery that's slowing you down whenever you do recover your arm. Um, with your arms over your head, could be out here. Um, my best answer is have somebody take a video of you and send it to me, and I can tell you. Um, so yeah, there's a couple ways where you can slow yourself down and lose momentum. Most of them are either from over gliding to where you almost stop and you have to recreate momentum every stroke, or it's from a really wide kick and a pause in between your kick and recovery. Some people do that. So that's my guess. Any advice or opinion on protein diets to lose fat, weight, and fat? Yeah, I mean, if you want to keep on muscle mass, you definitely want to add more protein to your diet. Um, but somewhere you have to cut calories, right? And that means cutting your fats some, cutting your carbs some. I'm not a fan of eliminating any macronutrient, like just eating protein or fat, uh, no carbs. Um, Not a fan of that. Keep your micronutrients. If you want to limit them, that's one thing, but I wouldn't eliminate them. So, but once again, I'm not a nutritionist. I just try to add some common sense to eating, and it seems like anything where you're eliminating a macronutrient, you're going to miss out on certain vitamins and minerals that are essential to performance. You may be reducing calories where you're losing weight, which is great, but you know, it could be other side effects that you're not considering. Just completed my first mile swim workout. What's a decent time for this, and how often do you program these in? It depends. Are you swimming with fins or without fins? Um, I would say, I just did a mile in 30 minutes with a pair of fins on. Um, that's pretty fast because that would be a 2 mile at about, um, 60-minute pace, which is probably front of the pack at any open water swim at Buds. Um, in fact, you have 85 minutes to pass a first phase swim. I think I was always in the 70, 65 to 70-minute range when I was going through. Um, so that's a good 2 mile pace. Just back that out for a mile, and you're somewhere between 30 and 35 minutes. And that's with fins. To be honest with you, without fins, I don't do a lot of swimming that nonstop without fins. I'll do a lot of sets without fins, like hundreds and 200s. I don't necessarily just swim for a mile without fins. Um, but I will with fins. And we only swim with fins on leg days. So all the other swims are done on upper body days. And on our mobility day, we do more drown proofing, treading, and things like that. So on those skills. So I would say we do two to three upper body day swims, which is no fins, and we'll do two, sometimes three swims with fins, depending on. We usually do 2 leg days, but sometimes we'll do like this Friday we're doing a spec ops triathlon where we'll swim with fins, run, and ruck as well. So not bad. I would say without fins for a mile, mm, roughly the same time. Be honest with you, between 35 and 40, maybe. Some guys are really fast. If you want to look up competitive swim times on like who's swimming the fastest 1500-meter or 1600-meter, you'll probably see those down in the 20s, which is legit. Maybe even break 20. All right. So when SEALs scuba dive 15 feet underwater, is that combat style or just kicking? Yeah, you're not moving your arms when you're scuba diving. You're just counting kicks. All right. Any advice on coming down to a decision between heading Air Force PJC or career path? How do you narrow down their options? Well, both are very different. Um, one, you're going to be an instructor. The other one, you are going to be an operator. Um, I'm not sure, if you want to be in the Air Force, that's a great way to go. And be honest with you, they're both great jobs. So really depends on what you want to do. If you feel like you're a better coach or instructor, maybe go with the career path of seer. If you're, you want to do other things, you can still be a coach or instructor as a PJ as well, but you're going to be an operator first. So kind of depends. All right. Let's see. I'll take this one last question from Mike. Mike, is a beginner swimmer, should I just be focusing on swimming, like swimming twice a day? I don't think that's necessary. My numbers in the rest are 85, 85, 32, 8, 26. That's good. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be overly spending a lot of time running. And I mean, you still need to run and do calisthenics to maintain those scores. But yeah, you should definitely be swimming more. Doesn't have to be more often, like two. It could be one longer swim workout. 50-50 workouts will do the trick. I'm telling you. I want you to try this. Try this for the next 4 weeks, 5 days a week, and let me know how you do. Telling you, I'm serious. Whatever you're swimming now, I'd be interested to see what you're swimming in 1 month from now. Maybe even 3 weeks. You might surprise yourself. And I've seen guys go from 10:30 to 8 flat in 3.5 weeks. So give that a shot. Works really well. All right, folks, I do need to go. Got to get some work done, but thanks for listening. Check out stewsmithfitness.com. If you guys stuck around this long, I appreciate it. You guys can check out Stu Smith Fitness and save 20% by using the COMPETE20 code over at stewsmithfitness.com. Thanks a lot. I will see you guys next week.